You then sing together.
Yeah. My name is Wonne Afronelly.
Huh?
My name is Wonne Afronelly.
Okay, and you?
And I am Deborah Oluiyah.
Deborah. Okay. Are you aware that one of you is not witness this ceremony?
He was around.
Hmm?
Taiwo. I'm sorry, sir. Is it Taiwo?
You see, why we didn't release your testimony again is we want you to give us the names of those military men that came here to fight. They came because of you. So, right there.
Sir, if I understand you said they came to fight. That's
yes,
not
the two men that came looking for you, and they were posted at the gate, and you came to the gate and took them in. Then you said you wanted to beat with them. Then eventually they were involved in a fight, and the student was stabbed, and they left, and you left, leaving the student to be bleeding. You would have bled to death, but because of our intervention, we took him to the hospital that night. They stitched him and they gave him treatment. We came back around 3 a.m. just because of that was in your action.
So first of all, they were not here to fight.
I don't want to. What I need is their name from you.
No, sir, you are given a picture of what.
If we invite them, they can tell us what.
You say they came because of me.
Yes.
And you are demanding their names.
Yes.
Without bothering to know my own side of the story, I should be able to tell you what happened.
Okay, go ahead and talk. I'm out here. You can sit down.
Thank you, sir. Well, it happened, today is Friday, that event happened on Wednesday. We were in a meeting with the director and director academics. We're actually working on a project, and the project has been on since last week, the evacuation of the waste in front of the school. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, we met with the management, that's the director and academics as well, and I shared with them the idea to evacuate that trash and find a solution that is sustainable. Now, in the course of surveying all the channels that empties into this particular access gate to the academy, we discovered that most of the dump comes from the barracks. And that's how we eventually paid a visit to the 9th Brigade Garrison. There we ran into one of the officers. In fact, that's where we met two of them. Now we were able to meet with some other officers and eventually the commander of the 9th Brigade Garrison, still on the project. The day we met with him a second time, the director of academics was there with us. He also saw one of the officers. He knows one of them. Now, we were supposed to meet with them because the commander asked that we reschedule a meeting whilst the cleanup had already started. I called him, he said he was out of town and would be back. We were with him yesterday. I gave the feedback because we've always been having interface meetings with the management to give them updates concerning the project. Now, at the time he was away, of course, we were supposed to meet with that particular officer, and it was supposed to be evening. But then we got into a meeting with the management, and the meeting dragged on for over 2 hours. Whilst there in the meeting, they kept on calling. and calling that they were around, but I couldn't take the calls. She too couldn't take the calls. So immediately after the meeting, we met up with them and the canteen at the back of the boys' hostel. After eating, because we wanted to walk them to the gate and then get into the classroom to read for our next paper, which was yesterday. I was behind the two officers and Deborah. Then as I approached, I noticed they were conversing, so I walked on the side. Then suddenly Taiwo comes to my side and says, "Nelly, what's going on here?" And I'm like, "Good evening. What do you mean, what's going on here?" Of course, I perceived alcohol stinking from his mouth. The next question, he was literally nudging the officers. Of course, he didn't know that they were soldiers. I could excuse him for that. He kept on asking, who are these people? They are with his girls. And saying vulgar words like, "You have pussy, I have a dick. When they leave, you are with me here." I still excused it for someone being under the influence. I pleaded with the officers to ignore him, as obviously he was under some influence. And we walked them to the gate. We got to the gate and Taiwo tried to close the gate. You can confirm from the security man that they were not going anywhere until they told him who they were, coming to see us. We kept on, it's quite hilarious that this has got to this point. We kept on pleading. They stood there and were waiting for a vehicle to take them away. And then Taiwo called someone, I don't know who he called, and insisted that the men answered the call because he was talking to a general who wanted to know who they were. And I called him, I said, "Taiwo, you are obviously tired. Why don't you go into the hostel and rest? We have exams tomorrow. These people are soldiers. Please excuse us. I don't know how who they are has anything to do with anything." And he kept stressing and stressing and stressing until he eventually hit. He hit one of the soldiers before what you call a fight. A soldier would be patient until you do something silly. They wouldn't just hit you. So that happened. I think they called someone from their friends because they couldn't get a bike for the few minutes, because I kept saying they should leave, but there was no bike. Whilst they were still, everybody came. We had to call the hostel governor of the boys' hostel to come with some guys to calm him down. We know how boys can be drunk sometimes, but at least maybe if he sees his colleagues, he could calm down, or they could say something to make sense to him, because he was obviously under the influence. And then the other guys came, and he was still nudging the other guy, and then he nodded him on his head and punched him. So those ones had to react, and that's what led to whatever happened. Whilst we were still pleading, because they wanted to take him away, and we kept pleading that, look, we have exams tomorrow, this cannot happen, because he would miss his exam. Whether he had rounded off his exam or not, I don't know, because he's not in my department. So the officer listened to me and called his guys, and they left. While they were leaving, Taiwo came behind me. I was still talking to one of the soldiers, and he nodded me behind. I still feel serious pains from my neck down, and I fell on my hips. Thank God I didn't hit my head on the fence. It was at that point that the boys in the hostel said all the girls should go upstairs and lock the door because he could attack again. And he made the statement saying it was because of me they were beating him up. And I said, how? So, good a thing, thankfully I didn't react, or I didn't call the soldiers back to take him away, because at that point I felt endangered. So the boys took him aside and told us to go upstairs. I was still in touch. We didn't sleep. I was still calling Kachi till 3 a.m. until they said, okay, he had been taken to the hospital, that we should calm down. Then we had exams the following morning. When I came for my exams, I mentioned to my HOD.
You see, you don't please. Are you aware that he was stabbed here?
I didn't see, I wouldn't know. There was a lot of chaos at the moment.
He was stabbed.
While we were pleading to let him be.
So, because we wouldn't have bothered if fought. But the fact that he was stabbed, that's where we stand. And I know that is unlike soldier to stab somebody. Soldier can maybe flog you with his belt or
So when you
hit
say
you
stab,
with his boot, but to stab somebody with a knife.
a knife?
Yes. That guy, he was stabbed here and his forehead. He was bleeding profusely. I came out around 10 to meet him.
So are you certain that, because there was a time Taiwo ran upstairs and came down,
Yes.
he could have been the one with the weapon to attack those men?
You see, that is why we needed.
Because we've had so many rumors
we needed
that.
the soldiers' name to invite them to know their own side of the story. You know. So what we know, this institution, the opinion we hold is that maybe he accosted them and they got into fighting, and then they took him with knife. Yes. So I was wondering what kind of a soldier that will shoot somebody with is he an arrow? You know? Whether he's a fake soldier, you know.
So are we about the personality here, or
I need
what
the name,
Taiwo did?
I need the name of the two
Taiwo
so that
attacked me and attacked my guests.
What, how come they start that? That is just
So have you established the fact that Taiwo attacked and provoked people walking on their own, irrespective of who they are? This has nothing to do with whether these men were soldiers or not. They were my guests.
I met the guy that night. I knew he was not sober.
Okay.
You know, he was under the influence of something.
But subsequently, he has been parading and peddling stories that
Yes.
And
we ignored his greeting, and that's why he did what he did. So he was conscious.
Those ones are immaterial.
Okay.
The material thing is that he was stabbed too, and the people that stabbed him, you know them. So I need their names, you know, so that we can hear from them why they went into stabbing somebody. You know.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. I would like to come in.
There are two. The two of them can beat the guy to a pulp. So why going to stabbing?
I'm sorry, sir. Can I say something?
I don't think he was stabbed
We
anyways.
can't conclude that he was stabbed
That would
with
be a wrong
a
conclusion.
knife. And we can't just conclude that those soldiers were the ones that stabbed him. That's it, sir.
Wait.
And we can't conclude that those soldiers were the ones that stabbed him. Why did I say that? Taiwo, at first, me personally, I have him to be blamed. Why? Because we pleaded with Taiwo, though we know he was drunk. We pleaded with him to go upstairs. But the question now is, who are we to him? We are not his girlfriend. We are not in the same department. Nothing is binding us together except for the fact that we are all students here who came to study one course on the other. Yes, sir. Taiwo went upstairs to continue receiving a call. GSM, these people are here, they are embarrassing me, I don't understand. I was like, embarrassing who? You that you are drunk. I don't understand. You came to look for these people's trouble, yet they didn't do anything to you. They left you, went upstairs. But yes, I never expected Taiwo to come downstairs again. Taiwo coming downstairs, he came downstairs putting off his clothes and all the noses, everything was coming up. Like, I think this guy is really ready for something else. Because at first, before he could get to that extent, I gave a call to Kachi, the male Ose governor. I said, Kachi, can you please come along with 2 to 3 of your guys, as if they should be able to hold him and bring him to the hostel. I said Taiwo is drunk and is constituting nuisance in front of the gate. Taiwo locked the gates, like he almost locked the gate on us. People that were going outside, this gateman, one of the gatemen have to, push him aside and tell him to leave for him to open the door for us. Even Taiwo himself, I think he should be questioned in this aspect, because who knows, him going upstairs to put off his shirt, it's very possible he comes down with, as is, we can't say no students wouldn't be allowed to bring knife. They will, because some of them will have to, my roommate has a knife, some of them will have to peel oranges, do this, do that. Even some doesn't know they don't cook here. Not until they got here, that was when they got to know they don't cook here.
As long as you state what happened, it's as simple as that.
She would enter. So we're supposed to sing together. Yeah.
NBA. I'm in NBA, Nigerian Broadcast Academy. I'm studying video management, sir. I'm close to your bags. Yes, sir. I'm close to your bag. Right now, where Kazawi is the general of all the over here. Yes, sir. This night. But I am being interrogated by a soldier. Hello, sir. What are you? By a soldier. He's talking to soldier.
He's the only one.
Student, our management will need evidence. I don't understand.
Boss, no problem.
Before we enter into the meeting, I said, hide your body now. I just, for peace and everything, I just said we are very sorry for what's happened. Though we know we are not at fault to me, but I just told him that we are very sorry for what's happened. So I said, that is a lot now. I said, do you know what you did that day was very wrong? I said it was because you were drunk. I said drinking, that apart from this physical embarrassment and problems that is giving us right now that you are involved in, I said, do you know it can damage your inner system too? Health stuff. He said yes. I said it's not good. I said I don't know you're that kind of person that even though we are not close, he even said, and Shebi we went to church together on this thing now, that he was referring to the last Sunday we went together at Dollar Form. I was like, I said it's not good, I don't like it. Like it should change. It's not good at all for me. Yes, okay.
You didn't ask him why that he intentionally did what he did, because is it you that snubbed his greeting or me that snubbed his greeting? Which of it? Because
no, I asked him a question again. He said no, that we are not fighting. He said me and him we are not fighting, and I said wait, you and Nelly, do you have any issue, like maybe fight or? He said no, that Nelly. He said no, that you don't have any issue. It was when we were still talking that Mr. Dr. Oluiyah came out. I was like, sis, this man is outside. Let me go talk to him. Never since then.
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. Now.
So why was he telling people that
I don't have his
we snubbed him or we snubbed his greeting? Because by the time I walked up to you guys, you were already interacting with him. So at what point did the snubbing occur? If you did not start asking strangers, who are you? Is he the chief CSO of this place?
Oh
my goodness.
Mr. Stanley, I think he called me like 2 to 3 times yesterday. That man, he recorded.
Hey, he called me too now. I wanted to get
you answered the call.
What will I do? I did not know who was calling before I picked. So he explained himself and asked me what happened, and I told him.
So maybe tomorrow, that's when I will remember to call him and say, I forgot the mess I was into could not make me remember, because I don't want to tell him anything.
Why?
I was waiting if she hear it from another. I'm tired.
But you know that what they are hearing is not what happened.
But you did not tell me anything.
Interaction happened with you first before I met you people. So if you don't state your own side of the story as it happened, then they'll keep hearing things and taking decisions. That's how we got here.
That is true, sir. Anyway, I'll just flash it tomorrow. Because today, there's no network in my body to talk.
Leave me, I'm waiting for them to do it. I can't show. Shall respond to the rest. They should give you your own. Let me rest.
Because if I travel, maybe I'll come and sit down beside you when you are done eating. So you tell me
you have to just draft something. It's a simple.
Okay, let me just write it at the back.
You don't want to narrate what happened. Just go straight to answer their question. They say you should leave me. That's all. But I would advise you narrate what happened, because nobody has their own statement of your day. You, whether Taiwo harassed you or harassed people while you were with them before I got to you, nobody can verify that except you. So for me, it's an opportunity to give my own narrative of the exact turnaround of events than what they have been hearing. Even the one we told Registrar yesterday and the one we told the management yesterday, it's just oral. There's no written statement or anything. So now that they've made it official on paper, it's another opportunity for you to write. So you narrate what happened, and then towards the end say, as at the moment you don't have the names of the officers, that the only person you know is Mr. Akos. Simple, because that's what I know him as.
Who I know, I write who I know show.
Anyhow you want to.
Let me say Mr. Boss, who I know show through this project.
Anyhow you want to write it, Sha. Anyhow you want to write it. If you know a first full name, you can write it too.
What are you talking about?
In any case,
Even
I don't
if
know
it's
about
not my
that.
enemy, I don't write it because I know it's
No, it's not a big deal. They will eventually find the names. But the point now is, how do I get the names? When I called that person to say, I need the names, you and your friend, and they drove down here, how everyone get the name? You go to cantonment and ask me questions.